In the scorching deserts of Maiwand, at a place called Garmawak, stood the command center of Faizullah Akhundzada's Mujahideen front. Fighters called it simply the camp. But their real battlefield, where their faith was tested, lay in Sang-e-Hisar, a rugged zone in Maiwand where 200 to 250 Mujahideen had taken shelter. Among them was a young warrior with unshakable resolve, Mullah Mohammed Omar Mujahid. He stayed in the mosque of Kashano village. That same mosque, once a humble refuge, would later become the birthplace of the Islamic Emirate. Mullah Omar added rooms to it, turning it into a school. From this place, history would shift. It was the winter of 1986. The Soviets, joined by Afghan communist forces, launched a massive assault on Sang-e-Hisar. Tanks roared through the plains of Jarai. Artillery thundered. Villages trembled. Outgunned but not outwilled, the Mujahideen fought back with rockets and ambushes. Mullah Omar and his comrades hid among orchard groves, waiting to strike. On the second day, Soviet forces pushed harder. But as their infantry moved in, they walked straight into a Mujahideen ambush. Under Mullah Omar's command, the Mujahideen dealt heavy losses. They captured enemy weapons. The Soviets fell back, but not for long. Moments later, the sky roared. Soviet warplanes screamed overhead, dropping bombs across the area. Back at the mosque in Kishano, Mullah Omar stood silently behind a pillar. Above him, jets soared. He watched the bombardment through his right eye, his only window to the chaos. Then it happened. A bomb exploded nearby. A shard of shrapnel flew toward him, striking him directly in the eye he was watching with. Through unbearable pain, Mullah Omar reached up and pulled the iron shard out himself. His eye was destroyed. Fellow fighters rushed to his side, but all they had were basic cloth bandages. There was no hospital, no treatment, and yet for an entire month he remained in that state, wounded, in pain, but still serving. He even joined missions, though he couldn't fire a weapon. Around that time, the Soviets realized the key to Mujahideen resistance was not just spirit, but supplies flowing in from Pakistan. They launched a ruthless campaign, targeting convoys, destroying routes, and cutting off lifelines. With Afghan intelligence KHAD, the Soviets attacked supply lines across the 2,430-kilometer border. Then came the game changer, the arrival of American Stinger missiles in late 1986. The Soviets panicked and retaliated with ferocity. They destroyed nearly one-third of all Mujahideen weapons before they could reach the front lines. To fight back, each Mujahideen front took turns protecting the supply routes. 1 month after Mullah Omar's injury, it was his group's turn. Their task: guard the road from Spin Nari and Arghistan, key border points near Kandahar. Though still injured, Mullah Omar joined the mission. He wasn't alone. Another wounded fighter travelled with him. They were also headed to Pakistan for medical treatment. It was bitter cold. They crossed the Arghandab River, heading toward Arghistan. Halfway, their vehicle got stuck in the icy waters of the Tarnak River. While Mullah Muwazzullah and others went to find a tractor, the rest pushed the truck forward. Eventually, Mullah Omar was transported to Chaman and then to Quetta, but that journey was the last time he saw his companion Muwazzullah. Muwazzullah was later ambushed by Soviet commandos while guarding the supply route. He was martyred along with several others. Their bodies were buried in a village nearby. In Quetta, Mullah Omar underwent surgery. After 6 days, he was discharged. Doctors gave him a prosthetic eye, but he never wore it. To him, the loss was not a disfigurement, but a medal of honor. He had lost an eye, but never his vision. That summer, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev announced that 6 Soviet divisions would begin withdrawing. Meanwhile, in Kabul, changes were underway. Dr. Najibullah replaced Babrak Karmal as head of the Communist Party. The Communists pulled back to major cities. In Kandahar, commanders like Ismat and Jabbar rose in power. forming security belts around the city. After recovering, Mullah Omar returned briefly to Uruzgan, where he got married, but by 1987 he was back on the front lines, in Kandahar. Mujahideen tactics had evolved. They now launched targeted attacks on enemy posts, especially in Kushkinakud, Greshk and Narisaraj. Mullah Omar brought his family close to the front, choosing danger over distance. He led from the front. In one battle near Mir Bazar, he famously destroyed 2 enemy tanks, throwing the communists into disarray. By 1990, Najibullah's reconciliation policy was gaining ground. Foreign aid to mujahideen had slowed. Morale was fading. Some fighters began secret talks with the regime, but Mullah Omar and a group of principled scholars refused. They walked away from their front, disgusted by betrayal. For them, this wasn't an end, it was a new beginning. After the Soviet withdrawal, Kandahar collapsed into chaos. The city fractured, no longer one but many, sliced into zones, each ruled by a different warlord. In Dand and its surroundings, Mullah Naqib held control. The provincial office, Herat Bazar and Shkapur Gate belonged to Gul Aga Sherzai. Amir Lali ruled Hazrat Ji Baba and Kabul Gate. The Kandahar airport, taken by Ahmad, son of Commander Magash. From Sarpuzar to Nazar Jan Garden, Ustad Abdul Alim expanded his grip. Sarkateb ruled Bagpul. Nadajan dominated Shah Agar Square and Nagahan. Habibullah Jan built strongholds in Sanzari and Ashoga. And in Kolak and Sulagai, Darakan held sway. But these men didn't defeat the communists. They inherited their power, often through collaboration, not confrontation. Even after the fall of the communist regime, senior generals like General Akram stayed in Kandahar, unharmed. Some later boarded planes and quietly left the country. Soviet-era bases remained intact. One example, the Ismat Muslim militia, once tasked with guarding the Kandahar-Boldik road. Their commander, Mansour, continued to occupy Shorandam and Garak, even in this so-called Mujahideen era. Kandahar had lost its law, now ruled by greed, checkpoints and gunpowder. The real Mujahideen, those who bled and sacrificed, had been pushed aside. Some returned to their villages, others, disheartened, laid down their arms. The spoils of war were claimed by those who never fought it. Looting began. Tanks and armoured vehicles, once disabled by warriors like Mullah Mohammed Omar Mujahid, Lala Malang and Talib Jan, were now dynamited. The warlords sold the steel to Pakistani dealers, scrapping history for profit. Next, they turned on the people. Across Kandahar, Herat and Boldak highways, checkpoints popped up like thorns. Chains blocked roads. Guns were lifted. Demands were made. Each commander had his post. Each demanded his cut, be it cash or cruelty. In Sang-e-Hisar, Mullah Omar forbade such abuse near his mosque, but the crimes just outside his reach shook him to the core. Eyewitnesses remember the horror. Maulvi Abdul Hannan, a scholar from Uruzgan, once shared a haunting story. Our car was stopped near Kandahar. A gunman approached and without shame touched a young girl. We were silent, terrified. Another man came to Mullah Omar's mosque, shaking with fear. I brought my mother from Herat for treatment in Pakistan. On our way back, I was kidnapped near Pashmol, held for 8 days. At night, we saw boys and women taken away by the warlords. Mullah Saadullah, a student of Mullah Omar, remembered another day. I was with Mullah Baradar passing through Pashmol. A gunman shouted filthy words at our driver. The driver stayed silent. I looked at Mullah Baradar and there were tears in his eyes. I asked, "Why are you crying?" He said, This is what came of our jihad, our martyrs, this filth. How could I not cry? There was more. Habibullah Jan, the Sanzari commander, was feared across the region. He kept a savage dog. If someone refused to pay, he tied them near the beast, letting fear chew away their dignity. Other reports spoke of women being dragged from vehicles, abused at gunpoint. These atrocities pierced the heart of the true mujahideen. For Mullah Mohammed Omar Mujahid, it was the breaking point. He had fought the Soviets for faith. Now he watched warlords, criminals in turbans, betray everything they claimed to defend. In silence, a flame began to rise within him. That flame would soon ignite a movement that would shake Afghanistan and echo across the world.